Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, Lockup Legends and Lessons. The last video that I put out, I was talking to you about the first job that I had once I got locked up. This job was in the county jail, but tonight I'm going to talk about the first job I had in state prison. As far as jobs go in the county jail, that was a very good one to have. If you missed it, there will be a link in the description below. You can go back and check it out at some point. But like I said, tonight I want to talk about my first job that I had in prison, not in the county. It's a whole different set of rules, a whole different set of jobs. Opportunities were more plentiful. There's a lot more available places that you could go and work. And the place that I got my first job at, very luckily, was the Commissary in state prison. For those that don't know, the prison commissary is simply this. It's just a store. It's the store inside the jail with the things that you're allowed to buy. You need a lot of things each week just to get through your time, and they don't send in packages like they used to back in the day because it's too much of a screening process. People are smuggling things in that way, and so they decided it wasn't worth the headache, and they just created their own prison commissaries over the years. And I think they've been there for a really, really long time, but the packages that used to come in, they're pretty much wiped out in most places from my understanding. So you need certain things. You're going to need your toiletries, your soap, your toothpaste, food. It's going to come at the prison commissary is where you can get it. That's going to be the place to buy it. It was a good job to have because you were right there around all the product that was coming in. So you could get first dibs at a lot of things. You could set your own bag aside, and you wouldn't run out of things if you worked in the commissary. Like, there might be shortages. Like, by the time a certain housing unit would come through, there would be shortages in there. They might be out of whatever the hot item was that week, but not if you worked there. You get free stuff a lot just because they'd have boxes of promotional things that would come into from the vendors, and they wouldn't sell them, so they'd just give them to us. So it was a pretty cool job, and I was, again, very fortunate to have that kind of a job initially once I come into prison. A lot of people try to get that job over the years, and they just don't get it. So you kind of have to know somebody. And if you saw the first video about the county job where I was working in the kitchen, the very same person that was able to get me in, he ended up doing a couple of years in state system, and he was up there at the same jail I went to, working in the commissary, and he got me in the door. So that was very cool, and sometimes it really is just who you know. The job itself was very straightforward. It was not complicated. There's a commissary building, and in the front there was like a grate that kind of went across, so it was where the counters were. And what would happen is your housing unit would get called up once a week or once every other week. Whenever it would be called, you would go in and you'd have a commissary list. It was a paper that had all the items, everything that was for sale in there. You'd fill it out beforehand. You write your name, your ID number, pass it into the window to the guard. They would take your ID, punch into their little computer. If you had money on your books, then you could shop. But if you didn't matter what you said. Oh, it's supposed to be on there. There's no talking about it with them. If you didn't have money on your books, if it was a clerical mistake, something wrong with the computer, it didn't matter. You're not getting anything if it's not already cash on hand. So the job, like I said, was very straightforward. There was like 3 windows where we were at, and there was 3 officers that would run the checkout counter. And other jails, it was just the inmates would do everything. But this place was pretty tight, so they didn't allow any kind of like inmate authority positions, I guess you could say, because they wanted to run everything, and they did. So there was each guard, 3 guards at 3 windows, and they would have 2 guys working at each one. So me and my work buddy, we would just get the list. As soon as they're like, all right, fill it, they pass it to us. I go through and I start grabbing stuff off the shelves. We'd have the shelves already stocked up from all the items in the back, and we just grab everything, put it on the counter, and they would just pass it to them. They'd ring it up as it goes through, and the guys would bring their own bag, usually a big net laundry bag or maybe a brown paper bag, but and they would just start loading all their stuff into it. And that was it. That's how you would get your items at the commissary. You fill your list out ahead of time. You come up, make sure you got money on your books. If you did, they pass it in, punch you in, and then we'd fill your list real quick. As long as you had money on the books, you could buy just about whatever up to a limit. There were certain items that had limits on them, like sugar, like sugar cubes. You could only get like 1 pack a week. I believe that was their way of trying to keep people from making hooch. There was some other stuff, but there was limits on certain things, like, like Little Debbie's. You could only get a certain amount. You couldn't come in and buy 25 boxes of Little Debbie's, because then they know you're probably running a store on your tier. So if you get there first and you buy all the stuff up, everybody's got to come buy it from you, and you're doing 2 for 1, 3 for 2, 4 for 2, whatever it is, whatever the rate is on the store, on the block, on the tier. They would try to cut down a lot of that stuff by controlling limits. So it avoided a lot of problems in their eyes, like people not paying, and then it becomes a fight, and there's unnecessary violence. So this is just how they ran things at this particular institution. It was a no-brainer job. We'd get boxes in the back, and we just rotate the items out in the front, and we would just have them filled up before the housing units would come for their store week. They come in, and we just take it from the shelf, throw it on there, and they'd take it back and they'd leave. It was a brainless job. It didn't require any kind of intelligence. You just had to grab the things that people wanted. Some of you guys that are watching the video know about State Week. State Week is the busiest time of the month for commissary every time, because it's when job details that everybody's working, because everybody's got a job detail in prison for the most part. Not pretty much everybody has a job. Whether you're doing sanitation, you just come out and do a quick sweep, push the broom down the tier after yard. You might be a laundryman. You might be working in the kitchen, commissary, anything like this. Library, maintenance worker. There was a pay that would come with each one. It was usually around anywhere from 90 cents to $1.10 a day. So it wasn't much, but that would come out on what was called State Week, where the state would pay you for the job detail that you worked. You could be getting anywhere from $20 to $32 or something like that. It wasn't a lot of money. It depends if you work 5 days a week, 7 days a week. It was just all different, but it was peanuts. But sometimes that's all people had. If you didn't have any help coming from outside, if you didn't have family or friends sending you any money, or you didn't have a hustle going where you could, take care of yourself, State Week would be all you get. And that was the busiest time, because that's when everybody would spend their money. They would come and get their food or their toiletries, whatever they needed, and it was just the busiest time. So to keep it fair, they would rotate the housing units. Like, it might be for a while on Mondays, housing unit 1 would come. And then the next month it would be on Tuesdays, housing unit 1 would come. And then next month on Wednesdays it would be housing unit 1. And so on and so forth. So it would just continue to move in case your unit isn't always the last one coming in, so you're always without. So they kind of made it as fair as they could by just keep moving it each week. So it'd be like housing unit 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And it'll be it would just move like that. So it'll be like 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. And I'm excluding housing unit 4 because that was lockup. So it was 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 where I was at. And it would just go like that, and it would just always move each time. And so that's how they would keep it. So if one week they didn't have enough stuff because everything got used up, then the next time it would kind of equalize itself. It would balance out to where you could get some of the things that you needed. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of my commissary list. It's been a long time. So I tried to remember most of the items that were hot items, the big main things that people would get in there. Like, these are the core items that you would want when you went to the store. These are the things that people bought the most of. You had your ramen noodles. That's probably going to be, if I was to have a list, that and coffee would be at the absolute top of the list for every prison commissary that you're ever going to go to. You're going to have ramen noodles. So we'd have the cups. They would have the bags of noodles, and you had like a certain limit amount on those. I think you could get like 20 or something a week. So it was no shortage. They were cheap. They were plentiful. It was something that everybody had. You always had noodles. Then you got your Little Debbie's, and that could cover everything from Star Crunch to oatmeal cream pies to nutty bars. Can't forget the Swiss rolls. And when Christmas would come around, they'd have those little Christmas tree things. And you got your honey buns, your iced honey buns. You got your potato chips. So many kinds of potato chips. I think you get like 6 a week, I think. And we're not talking those little snack machine ones. You're talking about the big bags of chips. So they had the sour cream and onion, salt and vinegar, barbecue plain, Ruffles, Ridges, Cheetos, something called a whole shebang, and they had this one that was a local chip company. Man, these things are so good. When they come through, I'd get my limit and then some if I could. Jalapeno kettle chips, and they were absolutely the best chips ever. And I don't go to that part of the state anymore, but if I do, if I'm driving nearby, there was a local place, I would go up and I get them. I get a couple bags of them and I bring them back home, and I wouldn't share either. They were all mine. I'd eat those things up. You got your dehydrated rice and beans. These things came in real handy when you're making a hookup. I mean, it's Cactus Annie. A lot of people probably recognize that. Cactus Annie was the brand. Canned food, your meats, your tuna fish, your Jack Mac, you got canned ham, kippers, potted meat, Vienna sausage, chicken breast, and you had your cereals, your oatmeal, your granola, that kind of stuff. And it was cheap knockoff cereal. Got your shredded mini wheats, frosted flakes, raisin bran, that kind of stuff. And they sold the powdered milk too. There was ice cream, you get condiments, ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, nacho cheese, the cheese spreads. They even had salt, bacon bits, Mrs. Dash, dehydrated onions, which are real good when you're making a noodle. You just shake a little bit in. When you pour your hot water on it, they kind of come out a little bit. And they really kind of tasted like those onions you get from McDonald's. If you get like a McDouble or something like that, those little onions that they got on there, it's pretty much like those. But, it brought more flavor than just a plain noodle. Get your hot sauce. You get hot sauce, which was cool, man. I didn't think they were gonna sell this stuff, and I was pleasantly surprised. They had, I think it was Tapatio and maybe some Cholula and some other stuff that they had in there. But there was hot sauce if you like the spice. And you get your Slim Jims, your summer sausages, all kinds of candy bars, hot cocoa, coffee, tea, juice mixes, iced tea, fruit punch, lemonade, creamer, but the powdered creamer, because there's no refrigerator, so you get that little powdered stuff. You're not getting a Dunkin' Donuts extra or anything like that. Then you had a lot of your essentials as well, like your personal hygiene stuff: soap, shampoo, body wash, toothpaste, toothbrush, those sorry little floss loops that would break on you, nail clippers, extension cords, shower shoes, real basic little washcloths and towels that were real just pieces of trash. They weren't hardly good for anything. Shaving cream, disposable razors, and that was another one I didn't think that they would have when I got locked up in the prison. Disposable razors, because you just take that razor blade out, and there's guys that would take one, and after you break it out, they keep it up in their lip. It's no joke, and they walk around with it because it would just be up here, inside your lip, above your teeth on your gum line, and they pull these things out and cut people. I mean, this is no joke. I had no idea that people had lip razors. So it was one of the things that came with, but you had to be able to shave in there. So it was easier for them to put those out and just deal with whatever happened than to send people down to the barber shop for shaves all the time. You got to have a certain level of cleanliness, especially when there could be lice or something else like that popping off in there. So they want you to be able to shave. And the last couple things they really had in there is just some miscellaneous stuff like art supplies. You get colored pencils, I think even crayons, like cardstock, because there's a lot of extraordinarily talented artists inside prison, and they would just draw some things that is just unreal. These guys got a gift, and there's a lot of talent behind those walls. Just because people got locked up doesn't mean that they're completely useless. And some very good musicians. There's some smart guys in there. People make mistakes, and some people like to continue to make mistakes. But a lot of guys that are in there, there was a lot of redeemable things about them. Whether or not you agree with that, that's up to you. But there's some real talent behind those walls, and when you give these guys colored pencils and some cardstock, man, they would draw their heart out, and they could make you some stuff that you could give them a picture of somebody in your family. Hey, I want you to draw a picture of my dad and put it on this letter because I want to send it to him. And it would look just like him. Scotch tape, your master lock for your prison locker, so you get it right there on the commissary. Batteries, which was a trade-out item. They wouldn't let you just accumulate a bunch of batteries because you could do some things like load up a bunch of batteries in a sock, or use the battery acid in a way that they don't want you to. So it was a trade out item. So like if you needed 4 new AA batteries, you'd have to bring back 4 dead drained ones that you'd want to pass off to them. So you do a trade out with those, boom, here, and then you get 4 back. So something that you couldn't just stack up on. You also had your stamps in there. That's where you get all your stamps for your postage, and these things called canteen tickets or picture tickets. It's like if you went on a visit and you wanted to get a picture done, there's like a jailhouse photographer. They come around, snap pictures of you with your family, and it would cost you, $1 a picture or whatever it was. So you'd have picture tickets. It would be $1 worth of currency that you could use in the canteen in the big yard, get ice cream, snacks, whatever, or you could use it for the actual pictures themselves. And last but not least, before I forget, they had cable TV splitters. I was in an institution where we could get a TV and have it in your cell. But the cool thing was, if your cell buddy had one, you could both have a TV. Couldn't believe it. I was completely flabbergasted. I was like, wait, we can both have our own TV in here? They weren't big. They were like some little, I think it was like a 12-inch, like a security television with like clear plastic all around, so you couldn't take it apart and put nothing into it. It was designed specifically for prisons and inmates. And but yeah, we'd get a cable TV splitter because had the cable coax coming right out in the cell, and we'd hook that up, and you have your cable wire. My TV was on top of my bunk, because I was top bunk, or on top of my locker, I was top bunk, and my bunk buddies was down low. And at nighttime, I had headphones I would plug in, and I'd hook them into it. So I wouldn't wake him up, because I was a night owl. I would work or stay up more night times, and I was a little more peaceful and quiet. So you had your cable TV splitters, which was pretty interesting. I had no idea all this kind of stuff went down in there, but there's a lot of things that they'll do to try to keep people busy, so they're not out there just idle hands, getting into trouble. Because then, if you can keep them watching some cable television for a while, there's less of a chance that they're going to come and want to stab a guard. So for them, it's a no-brainer. Give them some TV. This is an Alcatraz. We want to keep them preoccupied instead of furious and trying to come after somebody. So I did like my job in the commissary, but I didn't stay there forever because I found something a little bit better afterwards. I'm going to talk about that in the next video. It was a decent job. I enjoyed it. It was something good to get my feet wet and just get in there into a good work environment, make some connections, meet some people, and have a little bit of goodwill with people in other housing units. If you got a guy that's, hey man, I would really appreciate if you could put this aside for me because I really need this item. If they come at you the right way and says, hey Slim, you're going to hold this for me, it's like, whoa. There's a way to talk to people and there's a way not to talk to people. So the people that would deal in respect, you could deal back to them respectfully as well, and you would make yourself friends in there. You loosely use the term friends, but you want to have certain connections when you're locked up. It can really open other doors for you later on. Well, that's it. That's all I've got. If you stuck around to the end of the video, I appreciate you. Thanks for checking me out. And as always, the wise man doesn't get himself into what the smart man has to get himself out of.